speaker is also on, and once Kanchan is off, I'm going to invite our next speaker on. Yes. Our last speaker for the series of different strokes for psychology folks is Aman Zaidi, and there he is. Welcome, Aman. Very good day to you. And yes, participants, I know you're not getting a break after the last speaker. We're just moving on to the next one. So I'm extremely happy and honored to introduce to you Aman. He is the former head of operations, and as he says, he likes to move his cheese. He moved into learning and development motivated by a strong desire to utilize the strength of developing people. He has headed business units that employed over 600 people and netted an annual turnover of 5 million euros. Aman is keenly interested in meta-learning and constantly looks for ways to enhance the experience of his learners. He's a graduate of the prestigious Diploma in Experiential Education with an MBA in Marketing. He's an accredited strength scope user and its foremost champion in India. I think a lot of our MA students will know what I'm talking about. He also specializes in leadership development and employee engagement. Lastly, in his personal life, Aman is an archaeology and history buff and spends some of his spare time contributing to Wikipedia. Thank you so much, Aman, for making time for us today. Handing over to you.
Always a pleasure, Dr. Rajshri Trivedi. That's the name that I'm seeing out there.
That's yeah, well, that's my principal's Zaidi, and she'll be joining us shortly.
All right, good. Thanks, Cecilia. It's always a pleasure. I'm going to reveal some things about myself as I introduce myself. I know you've already made an introduction, but I think with your permission and with the permission of all the participants, I'm going to indulge myself a little more and share a little more about myself, and you'll be able to hopefully pick up stuff around why I moved my cheese and got into this. Because, well, Cecilia, you and I go back a long way, you know, probably 20 years.
20 years.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And clearly none of us were doing this at that time. We were doing different things. And there's a reason why we do this today. And I want to talk about that. So thanks, Cecilia. Thanks for having me. Thanks for introducing me. Everyone, I can't hear you. I presume you can hear me.
Yes.
In case you can, at the bottom of your Zoom screen, those who are logged in using a desktop, you will see a button that says reactions. You have the option of a thumbs up there. So if you can hear me, just click that and I'll know how many people are actually able to. Natasha, Rishika, Kruti, Karina, Ekta, Namrata, Vrishti, Ritika, Belita, Fatma. All right, good. Lots of people can hear me. I'm assuming the rest of you can also hear me. And it's just that you're probably logged in using a phone and not able to. In case you cannot hear me or are having any trouble, my suggestion is you could type something into a chat box if you have access to that. You can unmute yourself and speak up saying, hey, I'm having trouble. I wouldn't want to leave anyone out. Yeah, and I also know that, so is it Cecilia, who's the lady who's helping me? Is it Sonali?
Sonali, yes.
Right. Sonali is logged in?
Yes, she's logged in.
Super. So, you know, those of you who might be facing technical difficulties, if you can just send a message to Sonali and she'll flag it up or try and fix it. All right. Cecilia also said you won't be getting a break, but the good news is I am the break. I'm always the break. Cecilia, do you remember the me from 20 years ago? If you know that every
yes, it was like always one big party with Aman around.
And I'm hoping that that's what this will turn into.
I'm sure, yes.
So very, very quickly, Cecilia told you about what I've done in terms of career and courses, etc. But as you all students of psychology already know, that a human being cannot be limited to what they do in terms of education and work achievements. I'm going to tell you about who I am as a person. I've always been interested in people. Ever since I was terrible at studies. Ever since I was in school, and I was interested in hanging around people. And while I did take up a career initially, which had to do with numbers, etc. In about 10 years, I figured that I'd had enough. And the moving of the cheese actually happened because of that. I found that I wasn't enjoying my work, and I wasn't really wanting to go in. And when that process became a daily affair, a daily struggle of getting myself to work, I had to sit down and ask myself what's missing. And I realized that the opportunity to do something for another human being, the opportunity to help somebody in their career, in their life, to solve a problem, overcome an obstacle, learn something new, is what I found exciting. And so I moved my keys and I moved into learning and development. That was in the year 2010. So for the last 10 years, I've devoted myself to helping people learn. And well, learning is just one term for it. Essentially, helping people overcome challenges that they might be facing in their work and life. And the learning aspect is learning about tools, methods that can actually help them overcome those things. So that's why I do this kind of work. And I realize that I might, that what I've just said, it might resonate with some of you. So once more, those of you who resonate with what I've shared, can you just go back to the reaction tab and tell me, give me a thumbs up if you agree. And there's no thumbs down if you disagree, but let's see how many thumbs up we're getting. All right, great. Great. All right, thank you. So some of you are also drawn towards, probably drawn towards the kind of work that I do. You'd like to do work where you have the opportunity to help another human being, and great. Thank you very much. So having that's a little bit about me, just an add-on introduction. I'd like to know a little bit about you. You girls haven't had a break. Sonali, do I have the option of sharing a screen? I'm just going to check that out. Okay, give me a sec. Yes,
you
thank
can
you.
share screen.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to share a screen, and that screen is here. All right, what can you see? Let me know in the chat box. Sure, great. So people can see an India map, fantastic. Thank you. It's the map of India. Fantastic. Thank you. You can stop typing. Just wanted to see if everybody can see it. Thank you. All right. At the top of your screen, you should see a bar on which you will see an option called annotate. Right? If you click that option of annotate, a bar will pop up which will allow you to make drawings on this screen. I'll just give you a little demo, okay? So I'm going to click on draw, and I'm going to click on an option here. So if somebody asks me, for example, Aman, can you mark on this map where you're from or where you are currently based? Then what I will do is I will go here and I will make a little mark here. Can you see that? In case you can't, I'm just going to do there you go. So I'm somewhere here, right? Yeah, that's Pune. If you were to ask me where I currently am, I'd say that. If you were to ask me, okay, where do I have roots? I would possibly go up here, and I would, mark it here somewhere. Yeah. If you were to ask me another interesting question, which is, okay, where do you want to be from, or where do you want to go next? Then what I would probably do is I would go and do this. You see that?
Mm.
All right. Okay, so my invitation to everybody is, can you click on the annotate option, select a little, select a little button, or something like this, and you can go around making marks on this. And please mark on this map, uh, where where do you think you're going next? I'm not very interested in where you're from. I'm very interested in where do you think you're going next. So could you all start making marks out there? Okay, I see Pondicherry or Puducherry. I see Madhya Pradesh. I see, wow, nice. I'm seeing Ladakh. I'm seeing Tibet. I'm seeing Jammu and Kashmir. Nice. Hyderabad. Biryani lovers in the house. And somebody wants to go to Gujarat, Arunachal Pradesh, and the Seven Sisters of the Northeast. You got Nagaland, Assam, Sikkim. Wow. Andaman and Nicobar. Kerala. Lots of people love Kerala. You're like me. I love Kerala. Nepal, Tibet, Burma. Loads of stuff. Wow. And loads of fellow Goans. Hello, people. Cheers. Hammocks in the house. All right, wannabe travelers. Some people want to go to Odisha. That's interesting. I am assuming that you are interested in archaeology and history and temples if you want to go there. Okay, wow, great. Pakistan, that's also interesting. Afghanistan. Wow. Nice. Okay. So in case, and people are putting stars also out there. Good. Play. Good. Cecilia said there won't be a break, but this is a break. People, play. Decorate this map. I can't even see the map anymore. Thank you very much. Oh gosh, look at them. We're all kids,
Yes.
essentially. All right, good. So we can stop now. You had a little fun. You've been able to tell people Lakshadweep, Sri Lanka, uh, everything, right? And you've been able to share with your colleagues, with your teachers, with me, where you want to be going next. Whenever this lockdown is done and we've been able to beat COVID, we will travel. Okay, thank you very much. I am stopping share. So those of you who are having fun playing, you will find that your play has come to an abrupt stop, which is why this warning. But here we go. All right, we're back. If you had fun, give me a thumbs up. You know how to do that by now. Some of us are hard to please. I'm not seeing many thumbs up. But yes, thank you, people. Good that you had fun. All right. Okay, so what I'm also keen on doing now is hearing from you. What is it that you might like to hear from me today? You're here, you're logged in. Some of you are logged in out of curiosity. Some of you are logged in out of that very essential Indian thing called majburi. But you're logged in. You've made a choice to be here. Now that you're here, and you and I are together for roughly the next, hour and 15 minutes. So how would what would you like to get out of this next hour and 15 minutes that we have together? Do we, Sonali or Cecilia, do we have the option of breakout rooms here?
I'm going to try if you can guide me through it.
Yeah, unfortunately, the screen that I'm looking at is a little different. You will have an option of putting participants into breakout rooms.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
the only option I have is share screen, chat, and rename themselves. That's all that I can allow participants to do. So I don't know if that is a package specific thing.
It could be okay. It could be a package specific thing. If you click on participants,
Hmm.
do you see anything there?
No,
Are you
there
the
is.
host? Are you
Yes,
logged in as
yes,
the
yes,
host, Celie?
yes, yes.
Okay, great.
There is a waiting room and lock meeting, but I do not have a breakout room option.
Or you don't have a breakout room option. All right, no problem. We'll do the best we can. Then here's what we're going to do. We're going back to share screen. I'm going to share a screen again with everyone.
Okay.
And in this case, I'm going to share a whiteboard. Everybody, on your annotate screen, there's also the option of text. I'm just going to do a quick demo. So you click on the T, which is text. What you can do is you can type out stuff. And so what you can do is, right, you can see this?
Yes. Hmm.
Fantastic, great. So what I'm going to invite you to do is, once more, I'm going to share with you a nice clean whiteboard. And if on that whiteboard, you could use the text and you could type out uh, very briefly, not too much text, but maybe one sentence of what is it that you would like to get out of this webinar? What is it that you'd like us to talk about today? Then I'm going to get a quick idea of what is it that we might want to focus on. Yeah, from your expectation side. So let's begin. Let's do that. And try not to write on top of anybody else's text if you can. Thank you. Okay, I see one. Thank you. So I've only seen one input of text so far,
So
and I see
all these dots and all these drawings, are they being made by the students who are not able to type? Is that it?
it looks like it. So now you see another one. You see adaptability post-COVID. You saw another request on how do we manage to get into training and development.
Hmm.
And now we're seeing a third. Thank you very much. How could we manage and lead with the career we'd like to pursue? Okay, interesting. It might be a good idea for you also to write down what is the career you'd like to pursue. And the more specific you make it, the better it is. Generic makes it a little hard. So please write down whatever it is specifically. All right, Miss Bai, I see your message. Thank you. Text feature. Okay, for all of you who are facing trouble with the phone, please use the chat box. I can see your messages in chat as well. Okay, I see a message from Ishrat and Misbah saying it's a little hard to use text on annotate. So those of you who are using a phone, feel free to use chat once more. And I see management. Okay, great. Thank you there. Yeah, Ishrat, I see your message. That's everybody keeps talking about how phones will become more and more advanced. We're still waiting. Yeah, I see your message, Misbah. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. So I'm going to give us another 1 minute to see if any more responses come up. We've got about 3 or 4 so far. It's about psychology, management, post-COVID, learning and development. And then there's stuff about positive outlook. How aspects of psychology have helped you in your journey to date. Full potential. Ritika Kalra, good question, Ritika. Full potential. This is interesting. I'm going to talk to you about that sometime today. Nice. Ria. Flow. Somebody's been reading their Chigs in Mihai. Peak performance. Future of psychology. Nice question, Natasha. I'll not pretend to know, but hopefully we can start a conversation around that. Go on. What can we do with? Affirmations, emotional protection, overthinking, herbal contacts. Nice question, Janvi. Zainab, contacts you're talking about, how do you build contacts, okay? Misbah, the field of psychology you studied, wow. Sakhi, living beyond fear in a creative way, Ritika, and positive outlook. Okay. Great. What can we do with the state we are in right now in lockdown? Okay. Could you make that question a little more specific? What's the struggle? I know lockdown can mean different things for different people. This situation can affect people in different ways. If you can make it a little more specific, that will help. Aparna, thank you. The field of positive psychology is something I find really, really interesting, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that to you. Studies. Okay, that's one. Then I see a comma. Online. Submissions. Yeah. Oh gosh. Please also put your name out there. You're asking such wonderful questions. I'm just curious about who's asking me this. Jay. Thank you, Jay. This is a little bit like one of those films where the computer comes alive and you're talking to a computer. All right. Okay, Jay, I can give you some perspective. I may not be the best qualified to do this because, like I admitted, I was academically, not exceptional. In fact, I was on the opposite of exceptional, and I struggled throughout with these struggles that you're going through, even in non-lockdown times. So, I'm going to give you a little perspective depending on, from my side, but. I'm also going to invite you to reach out to those people who are managing to do this, and they may have a little perspective for you. Probably Cecilia may have perspective on how to do this, or somebody else might be able to guide you. But I'll come to this. Please do not erase whatever you've put up. Okay, Tom Riddle's diary from Harry Potter, Saki. I haven't read it. I'll have to check with my daughter. She's nuts about Harry Potter. Misbah, you've been looking at my LinkedIn profile. You made so many shifts in your career. What was the vision from the beginning or motive? Wonderful question. I'll come around to that. Okay, great. Thank you so much. We've got a lot of input, and if you've got more input, you can keep feeding it into the chat box. But I think we'll, as they say in Britain, crack on. So, with your permission, we'll, move on now. So, okay, great. Nice. Thanks. That's context, Jay. Very, very important. Context is vitally important. No solutions can come without context, and thank you for adding that. All right. So here's the thing. The topic seems to be quite interesting today, right? We're talking about what's the topic that we are talking about today? Different strokes for psychology, folks, and very creatively named. Full marks to the person or the team that came up with that. It's even got a little rhyme. Very nice. Cecilia, when you and I were speaking, I think the brief I had at that time is the field of psychology. What can you do with it? You've chosen psychology as a subject of study, and what can you do with it? I don't believe I'll be adding too much here, because in your course, whether you're an undergraduate or a postgraduate, in your course, you already must have come across the various applications of psychology. So you may already remember it, or when I rattle through some of these, it might jog your memory, but I'm going to do that. See, here's my take on it. We inhabit a human world. Some people may even argue we inhabit an inhuman world, and you're right. But at its very essence, every single thing that you see around you today, the computer you are using, the phone you're using, the internet, the chair you're sitting on, the bed you're lounging on, the vada pav you eat as a snack, all of these are human activities or resulting from human activity. Anything that happens around us is coming from human activity. So, and therefore we inhabit a human world. And if I say that since we are living in a human world, then it's really important for us to also understand that psychology is the study of human behavior. And if everything around us stems from human behavior, then psychology has as many applications as you can see industries and activities. Because at the end of the day, all human behavior results in something being produced according to a certain quality, or something not being produced according to a certain quality. It could be a product, it could be an outcome, it can be a service. And in my line of work specifically, my job is to understand, okay, what is at play inside a human being's head that leads to either a desired outcome or something which is, or leads to an obstacle in that desired outcome. In the field of clinical psychology, you will say, okay, what is it that defines functional behavior and what's causing it, and what is it that causes dysfunctional behavior, and how can we study that and maybe prevent that or cure that. So the applications, at least in my head, the applications of psychology are immense. Okay, I put together a list, so I'm going to look at that list and read out a few. Very clearly, counseling is one. Counseling, therapy, whatever you want to call it. And there's very many types of therapy today. You have, and I'm not only saying REBT, CBT. I'm not only saying Rogerian approaches to therapy. I'm saying you've got adventure therapy, and the previous speaker, what was her name? Cecilia? Sorry?
Kanchan
Kanchan Khilare. Right.
Yes.
Kanchan spoke about drama therapy. So you got music therapy, adventure therapy. You take people out. You take at-risk adults. You take drug addicts. You take anybody out into the outdoors. You put them through adventure, and you use therapy in those kind of settings. So you got adventure therapy, music therapy, drama therapy, and you've got all the traditional forms of therapy. So just counseling and therapy being one line of work where you want to help people, you can actually do it in a variety of ways. If you're an outdoor person and you want to help people, you don't want to spend the rest of your life counseling people in a room. You can look at other modes of doing therapy. So don't get intimidated by stuff like that, because there's multiple options. Then you've got industrial psychology, or organizational behavior, and that's incredible. I come from that field and allied fields, and I think, again, you look at organizations, they're essentially a microcosm of our world. Everything that happens in an organization or doesn't happen is the result of human endeavor. And human endeavor, where does it come from? It comes essentially from that white and gray mass inside our heads, which is a bunch of different electrical impulses, emotions, memories, etc. And and if you can work with that mass, you can probably influence outcomes that these human beings produce, and you can therefore influence an entire organization. You can actually change the very culture and the productivity and the way an organization behaves. So there's a lot to do in that field as well. Then you've got educational psychology. You got training, learning, and development psychology, stuff that I do. Understanding learning behavior. So one huge subset of psychology is learning behavior. What causes that? And if you can get into that, you can actually help change the entire education system that you operate in. You can change the way a school operates. You can change the way a college operates. You can change the way an organization operates if you just decide to be informed by, if you allow your own practice to be informed by, to be guided by basic psychological tenets, things such as safety, things such as belonging. All of these figure, and unfortunately, most practitioners from my field, this is true. And there was a lady who'd asked, "How do you get into learning and development?" Maybe I can try and answer that here. One of the challenges with learning and development is that there is no entry barrier. Yesterday, you were a sales manager. You decide, I'm going to stop doing sales. I'm going to become a trainer. And you become a trainer. 10 years later, you're known as a trainer. Does this person understand the first thing about how human beings learn, what human beings' motivations are, etc.? Probably not. They've had no formal education in this field. So this field is actually full of people who were panwalas yesterday and are trainers today. And that's the problem. So if some of you are interested in changing education, training, and learning development, it's a great field to get into, and you should, because then we'll have qualified people occupying this space. It'll be really cool. Then, of course, you've got criminology. You could look at forensic psychology. You could try and figure out, okay, why do people commit crimes? How can we prevent it? You can get into profiling. You can get into understanding, who's doing what and why. So that's that field, if that interests you. And you've got consumer behavior, understanding how human beings take buying decisions. And you got economic behavior. In fact, you're probably well aware that there's this gentleman who's a psychologist who won a Nobel Prize in the field of economics. How does a psychologist win a prize in the field of economics? This is a guy called Daniel Kahneman. And so Kahneman was actually studying human behavior with respect to economics. How do people take economic decisions? And that was such a stellar study that actually led him there. So who knows, for in the future, some of you could be doing research and winning Nobel Prizes for us in the field of, it could be in the field of behavior, it could be in the field of economic behavior, consumer behavior, you could actually do preventive criminology and win a Nobel Peace Prize. Who knows? So lots of different options available. I know for a fact that advertisers understand consumer behavior very well and they use it against us. Marketers do that all the time. We also know that that filmmakers and serial makers, series makers, especially in Hollywood, they know exactly how to get us hooked. We know that game makers. So if those of you who are interested in gaming and you want to make the gaming industry more ethical or more profitable, you could get into that. You want to work for Netflix or HBO, and you want to know about how to get audiences hooked, you can do that. You want to do social media marketing from a psychological lens, you can do that. And if you want to become a political advisor, if you want to know how do you influence a mass of people, how do you influence millions and millions and millions of people to vote for somebody who is controversial, somebody who has accusations of all negative kinds against them, and how do you get masses, how do you influence masses to vote for these kind of people, then politics is for you. Look at what's happening around us today. You've got psychologists and marketers working on improving images of people like Donald Trump. So my belief is you've studied psychology, you have a varied bunch of passions and interests, and I think you can actually take your knowledge of psychology and you can apply it in any field that interests you. And you can do it in ethical ways or unethical ways, and hopefully you'll choose the ethical ways of doing it. But there's a lot to do. I'm going to pause here because I know usually when I share something, it might lead to a few questions. So I'm going to pause here and just take a few questions. If you want to ask a question, you could raise your hand, and Cecilia or Sonali could unmute you, and you could ask that question. Yeah.
Sure. Also, there are a couple of questions in the chat box already.
Yeah, sure. I'll take that. Thank you.
Do you want me to read them out to you while we wait for people to raise their hands or something?
Yeah, so I don't know if they know how to raise their hands. Let me just tell people. You'll have to click on participants. You'll have to go into participants. You'll have to look at your name and click on your name. You'll see a more, against your name. So I see, okay, great. So I see Mariam has raised her hand. She seems to have a question. Let's take Mariam's question.
Mariam, do you have a question? Because she seems to have been raising her hand since morning.
Oh, since morning? Okay.
Yeah, for all the talk. So yeah, Mariam, you are unmuted. You'll just have to unmute your mic and ask a question if you have one. Okay. I don't. No, Mariam. No, I don't. All right.
All right, great. So, okay, good suggestion then, Cecilia. Why don't we take some of the questions that came up in the chat box while we wait for people to put up their hands?
Right. Ankita and Ishrat.
Yes, Ankita and Ishrat have. I think Ishrat, your question is interesting. I think all of us need to do something around it. Mental health issues are still taboo. There's a lot of stuff that is taboo in India. Meat eating is still taboo in India. Period health, talking about periods is taboo in India. Most men are still embarrassed to go and buy a packet of sanitary napkins for their spouses, sisters, kids. It's still uncomfortable. So there's a lot of stuff that is taboo. It's not just mental health, and it's a very slow process. Unfortunately, it's a very slow process. What can we do to change it? I think we need to take it upon ourselves to keep talking about it, to be vulnerable about it if we've experienced it. So for example, I've been through mental health struggles on my own. about a little before I shifted careers in the year 2000. Well, 2005 and 6 were, terrible years for me personally and work-wise. And 2007, that kind of culminated in a panic attack. And then, I panic attack followed by generalized anxiety, stuff like that. And I was eventually benefited by therapy. I was able to find a good therapist, and there are good therapists and bad therapists. I'll tell you that. So if you think therapy is not for you, don't do it, because you can actually uh, you can actually be a therapist and not do people good if you're not good in that field. So I was able to find good therapist and learn a lot of stuff. So it's important for people like me to talk about this openly, saying, hey, a lot of people struggle with it. I've struggled with it. And I think what happens is when we talk about it openly, the more we talk about it openly, the more other people get encouraged. The only way you can give people courage is by yourself being vulnerable and talking about things. Making sure that we are not afraid of making it part of regular conversation. That there is so-called polite or acceptable dinner room conversations or dinner table conversations or cafeteria conversations, and there are private conversations. I think that barrier needs to get blurred. More and we talk about sex quite openly. We talk about sex pretty much all the time. And I don't know why it should be different to talk about our mind. So my invitation is to all of you to please be vulnerable and authentic and share and talk more about it. And if somebody says, no, I don't want to talk about it, give them the space, saying, okay, whenever you want to talk about it, I'm here. So that, and hopefully that's some kind of answer for you, Ishra. Ankita, any organization or institute to learn training and development? This is a very painful one, especially in India, because unfortunately you have an MBA in HR, you have no MBA currently being offered in learning and development. And it actually deserves to have a field of study or a course entirely devoted to itself. And there are courses. There's ISTD, the Indian Society for Training and Development, and the content out there, is 20 years. Well, it's outdated by 20 years, and the faculty and members of ISTD who run ISTD, they are outdated by about 40 years. So both the content and the people out there, need to be revamped. And it's a course that people know, but it doesn't teach you much. There is one course though. There is a course run by a gentleman in Pune. He's my teacher. It's called the Diploma in Experiential Education, and a whole lot of stuff that I learned was actually there. So if you are interested in getting into this field, that's one course that might help. It might actually help if you've done some training or some teaching before you get into that course, because what they're talking about might help. So even if as a hobby you take up a little teaching and training and then go into the course, even if you've done it for about 6 months to 12 months and then go for the course, I think it'll be a good thing. So even if in your spare time, Ankita, you start teaching or training people, that might be a good thing. It'll be good practice and it'll help you learn. That's one good course, and there could be a few good courses internationally, but nothing that I would be in a position to recommend. But this I can recommend. Go to a website called experiential.institute, and you'll find information there. All right, Namrata, learning behavior, credentials. One needs to be at a place to influence schools and institutions to change for the better. Interesting question, Namrata. I think your credentials really always come from the kind of work you've done. I have a friend who's recently, actually two friends who recently joined the school. This school by itself is a forward-thinking school, and they've interviewed a lot of people. And the reason they chose my friends is because these friends have been doing this kind of work with kids for very long. Both friends have actually spent time abroad in the field of experiential education. They have run outdoor education camps and sites for a couple of years, and that is their credential. So the reason why a school or college will listen to you is if you can demonstrate that you have done this kind of work in the past. So ultimately a credential is that. Alternatively, you can do a PhD in the field, and hopefully that can help position you as an expert. That's one way of doing it. I don't know if I'm answering your question. Hopefully that's helpful. Shrivali, the course is called Diploma in Experiential Education. In short, it's called DEEP. So basically, you're doing a deep dive into the field of education. And the gentleman is called Vishwas Parchure, right? And the website is called experiential.institute. Yeah. And if you speak to him, you can tell him that Aman, Aman referred you. He, he ought to remember me as one of the students.
I don't think anyone
Right.
meets you and forgets you, right, Aman?
Sorry?
I don't think anyone who's ever met you forgets you too easily. That's been my experience.
Thank you very much. I'm 45 years old and I need those kind of compliments.
but they're very genuine and from the heart. When I started working, Aman was already at the workplace, and I used to always look at him with all this confidence and this ekam style me and that swag. I think as a word didn't exist then, but I was like, wow, man, how does he manage to handle himself with so much of confidence? And now when you share about those vulnerable times in your life, it just shows again that, no matter what you're showing on the outside, everyone is fighting their own battles. And then they come out so brilliantly on the other side.
True. I think, Cecilia, what you've said is what you said, my teacher Vishwas also says. He says, be kind to everyone you meet because you have no clue about what they're struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I don't know what you're going through right now. There's 65 people I heard from Sonali that might be logged in right now. 72 it shows me, including us. There's 72 people out here. And no matter how wonderful they look in their pictures, that I can see here, I have no clue what struggles they're going through. Mm-hmm. And all I can do is be a receptacle for them in case they want to share, and just be there with ready ear and whatever else we can offer. So well said, Cecilia. Ultimately, all we can do is to be receptive and kind.
Thank you.
Thank you. I saw 2 hands out there and one person dropped out. They didn't like what I said. Okay, Ritika.
Ritika, you can unmute yourself if you like. Okay.
Ritika, do you have a question?
All right. No, I think we'll just let you finish what is the content that you've got prepared, and then perhaps we'll take questions at the end. Sure. The experience of this webinar throughout is just when we are saying thank you, bye-bye, is when all the questions suddenly pop up on the chat box.
Sure. No, which is why I want to keep it conversational, which is why I kind of got all the questions in the beginning, because I don't want it to be my agenda, and there's no point in that. So great. I'm going to go back to some of the questions that we got earlier with your permission. Okay.
Yes, of course.
So I think Misbah's asked an interesting question about psychology and my journey with it. Misbah, like I said, unfortunately, I don't come from a background in psychology. That's been my handicap actually in life, not only in my career. I think psychology needs to be a more essential subject than mathematics. A lot of schools don't, and even colleges, they don't get it right. They're just stuck in something 30 years ago. How can you have 3 languages mandatory? How can you make mathematics mandatory in school? How can you not make psychology mandatory? You're saying we should study mathematics at the cost of psychology? You think we should compromise our understanding of human behavior, of ourselves, of our families, of our children, of our friends, of our relatives? All of that we don't need to learn about, and we need to learn about the Pythagoras theorem. I think it's weird. And so if I had the money, I would start a school where maths would not be mandatory, but psychology would. I don't know. Why do we need to? I studied from Bombay University. What is that mandatory? What are the mandatory classes that you need to take?
At the college level would be English foundation course, and at the
Okay.
school level would be languages. School level, everything is mandatory, except you get a choice of language after a certain point.
Yeah, but even in college, we have something like general knowledge or value studies.
That's
Uh,
foundation course. It's now called
yeah,
foundation course.
FC, absolutely. FC, I remember foundation course now. Why do you need a foundation course which is mandatory? Or a language? You've anyway gone through enough language. All of these need to be optional. Psychology needs to be mandatory. Anyway, coming back to your question, Misbah, so I didn't have psychology. I actually I felt the need to understand psychology only after I got into learning and development as a profession, because I wanted to understand human beings, their behavior, their learning behavior. And deep exposed me to some concepts of psychology without calling it psychology. That was interesting. And then I did a course in transactional analysis, which is the work of Eric Berne. So I did a course which is called Transactional Analysis 101, which is a basic foundational course, which is a 2-day program. So I did that, and my intention is to keep learning more. Unfortunately, like I said, academics has been my Achilles heel. So I have all these intentions about wanting to learn more, but I haven't been able to finish courses. There is one that I'm pursuing right now. I'm actually doing an online course from Coursera called Foundations of Positive Psychology, because that's a field I'm really interested in. So that will be my second certificate if I can finish it. And that's how I've been going about teaching myself. Plus, what I do is I always I tend to collect a lot of psychologist friends around me. So what I'll do, for example, is I will call Cecilia one day and I'll pick her brain. I said, Cecilia, explain to me about this. I have another friend called Kanishka who understands Gestalt quite a bit. So I pick her brain, say, explain to me Gestalt. Then I have another friend called Sunit Bhattevara, very bright chap, and I'll pick his brain, about it. And then, I have another friend called Tanya, and then I'll pick my therapist's brain on it. So I will keep learning about psychology, less from courses and books, but more from practitioners and so people like you. One of my dreams is just to be in a room with people like you and have each of you teach me something about psychology. So, in a 1-day period, if each one of you pick up a topic and we talk about it, I'll actually walk away very, very happy. So that's the way I learn about psychology. Misbah. Zainab, how to build contacts. We're constantly building contacts, Zainab. As long as we're meeting people. There's two approaches. My approach has always been that it's not a very planned and focused approach. So I don't think about okay, I need X type of contacts. I don't go about it in a planned way, saying I've got to build contacts who've got a turnover of over 100 crore. I'll meet a chaiwala, I will chat with him. I'll meet a panwala, I'll chat with him, and everybody becomes a contact. So the more people you meet, the more potential for contact building exists out there. And then, of course, the next step is to follow up. So, for example, the only reason that I'm here today is because Cecilia and I stayed in touch. Cecilia and I had the opportunity of meeting almost 20 years ago at work. But that opportunity only helps you make the first contact or second contact. But the intention of staying in touch, and it's not that she and I stayed in touch regularly. We lost touch for a bit. We lost numbers, we changed phones, but then we found each other and then we reached out again saying, hey, Cecilia, hey, Aman, how's it going? and that's what has led to us doing this here today. So sure, do contacts lead to opportunities? Yes, they do. How do you build contacts? You build contacts by taking an interest in people. I think that's what it is. So if you're the type of person who's genuinely interested in people, it's not going to be hard for you. If you're the kind of person who's not very interested in people, if you are what we call a classic introvert, um, then it might be a little harder for you. And what I just recommend is just understand every meeting is an opportunity for you to have made a new contact, say hi, uh, and then try and stay in touch. You can stay in touch over LinkedIn, over phone, over WhatsApp, over Facebook, and you can just send one message occasionally every month, every couple of months, saying, "Hey, hi, I just thought of you today," and that's just the way of staying in touch, really. Again, I don't know, Zainab, if any of this is helpful. I hope it is. Give me a thumbs up if you think it's helpful.
Yes, Manali has also helped.
Okay, good. So it helped a few people. So glad. All right. How has psychology helped you in your current work, Aparna Rajan? I think psychology helped me understand what I was doing a little better. Just so for example, when I'm running a workshop with participants, or when I'm coaching somebody one to one, just the importance of how people want to feel safe and included. These are basic psychological tenets that if you do not know, you could actually skip very, very important parts in a workshop. Just understanding that people have a need to have fun. Why do you think I did a little activity at the beginning of this session? The reason I needed to do an activity is because I understand now some things about neuroscience, about psychology. I know that the human being, the human brain, can actually get tired. That attention is difficult to hold and to keep. And it's very, very important for me to begin a session by allowing people an opportunity to have fun, an opportunity to connect with me, an opportunity to see that I am not yet another boring professor, an opportunity to see that I am a human being that you can connect with. So just those things, that's what you can actually understand from psychology. And so this is applied psychology. There's a lot of concepts that psychology throws at you, but can you take those concepts and can you include it in your work? That's really the trick to doing good work. Natasha, the future of psychology, I can't say. All I know is that I would like to believe that you have a very, very bright future. Like somebody had asked earlier, I don't know whether it was Misbah or somebody else, or Ishrat. Ishrat had asked, right? That mental health is a taboo still. Well, the taboo is going to go away slowly, and more people are going to start talking about their need for a counselor. We could be leading socially isolated lives because of COVID or technology. People are going to experience isolation / depression / mood swings / anxiety, and the need for counselors, the need for occupational psychologists is only going to increase. That's my hope. So I think, in fact, I've been contemplating doing a certificate course in counseling, because when the need for therapy mushrooms, I want to be there to be able to fulfill that need, not only from a career perspective, but also because somebody needs me. So that's my hope.
Okay, Ananta, will you please put off your mic? I mean, I tend to mute her, but she's sorry.
No, I muted. That's okay. Thanks. Ananta, sorry about muting you, but just, needed a little less noise. So thank you.
No, it's perfectly fine. Said was because it said that the host would like to unmute you. So
Ah,
unmute
it said
myself
that.
to see you.
Okay, got it. Sorry for
Huh.
the confusion. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
no problem. All right, so we've got more questions. Let me just take more questions from people. There were a couple of questions about having a positive outlook in tough times, etc. So I think this one's from Fatima and a few other people. I think said positive outlook. So the thing about a positive outlook is this, that this is my understanding of it. Remember, you guys have studied more psychology than I have. I think if you know, if you're good students, if you're like me, then you've not studied anything. You just pretended to go through your course. But here's what I understand. I think human beings have something called the optimism bias, and they also have something called the negativity bias. So, and I also understand, I've been given to understand that some people may have more of a negativity bias and some people may have more of a positivity bias. The good news is that no human being has only one or the other. I think both of us, I mean, all human beings, all of us have both these things. We have a little bit of a tendency to think negatively, and we have a little bit of a tendency to think positively. And if you look at it from the neuroscience perspective, neuroscience tells us that the brain is a muscle. The more you do something, the greater that part becomes. So if you want to be positive, if you want to grow your positive attitude a little more, each time you catch yourself being optimistic, pat yourself on the back and practice it again and do it again. There are people, practitioners, who actually recommend having some kind of a positive practice every day. Some people recommend gratitude practices every day. Some people recommend journaling every day. I remember reading that there was a study conducted on depressed teenagers, and this you may have come across. But what they got these depressed teenagers to do was that they asked them to write down 5 good things that happened to them today. They had to find 5, and they could have been ordinary good things also. You know, just I woke up alive today, for example, right? That and they asked them to write them down in a journal for a period of 12 weeks. So every day they did that for 3 months, and they found that the positive effects, there were positive effects on the mood of those. So if you measured the mood pre-exercise, it was somewhere, you know, here, and post of this exercise, the mood had actually been elevated. So people noticed that just thinking about what were the 5 things to be thankful for, or 5 good things that happened to me, and writing them down every day elevated people's mood. And that elevated mood actually lasted for 24 months. So a 3-month practice actually led to 24 months benefit. And we can do stuff like that. We can actually teach ourselves to become slightly more, or intentionally more positive. Hopefully that answers the question.
Can I interrupt you, Aman?
Please.
Yeah. So because we're talking about positive, the master students have a paper called Positive Psychology, and they do what is called as the values in action. You know, the entire questionnaire, and they learn how to do the analysis. So I think a lot of you would be interested to know that Aman is also, as it was read out in his bio, is a strengths finder. Would you care to share how that is part of your work? Because a lot of our students, and I'll tell you where this comes from. This is when I was doing my master's about 20 years ago also. My professor told me the same thing, that the people who are out there doing the motivational training and the coaching jobs are people who have no background in psychology. The psychology people have all the tools and they sit with it. The people who actually take it out to the public are the people like yourselves who have experienced it very, very differently in a very applied way. So for all of us who have the tools, who have been trained in it, what would you recommend? How do we use it?
I think great question, actually. It's making me think, Cecilia. I think before you start using those tools, you got to understand whether positive psychology as a field excites you. You know, you've got multiple disciplines within psychology, and we all use those approaches that appeal to us. You know, for example, there are multiple approaches to therapy.
Hmm.
There's CBT, there is the REBT, there is the Rogerian approach, and there could be Gestalt, and you will gravitate towards the one that appeals to you. This is universal human truth. There's no one right answer. Apparently, all of us just have our own preferred answers.
Absolutely.
And so before you start using positive psychology tools, you got to understand, does positive psychology make sense to you? It makes instant sense to me, and which is why I'm a practitioner.
Hmm. Hmm.
Positive psychology, the whole history of it is positive psychology was a counter movement to the way psychology was studied initially.
Correct.
And early, if you look at psychology without positive psychology, it seems to be a deficit focused model. Let's find out what is wrong with human beings and then study it and look for things to fix. And positive psychology said, and hey, hold on, what is our assumption? Is our assumption that human beings are only full of deficits? Because when you think like that, then you become a horrible parent, you become a horrible spouse, you become a horrible educator, terrible teacher, very bad principal, right? Because you're constantly looking for what's wrong with this child, what's wrong with my child, what's wrong with my spouse, what's wrong with the world, if your entire model is deficit.
Hmm.
And appreciative inquiry, which is David Cooper-Ryder's work, and positive psychology, which is Seligman and others, we're saying, look, come off it. Human beings have gifts and talents, not only deficits. In the same human being. So you look at somebody like me, I have 20 deficits, but I also have 20 talents. And it's up to you what you want to focus on. If your worldview is, I want to fix people's deficits, then don't do positive psychology. It's not for you. But if your worldview is that, look, human beings have gifts, and those gifts need to be encouraged and harnessed, and people's sense of well-being is going to come from them practicing their gifts, and people's sense of achievement. And somebody asked me about peak performance and flow. Riya Kulkarni asked me that. Riya, you probably studied this, but there's a very strong correlation between flow and peak performance, according to the studies in positive psychology. You don't experience flow if you are not working in an area of your strength. The way Roger Federer plays, the way he looks, like, poetry in motion, the way, the way he conducts himself on the field, you would not see any of that if he didn't intrinsically like and enjoy that. If he was struggling with it, if it was a non-strength area, he would come across as sweating and angry and frustrated. So flow and peak performance are very, very closely related to you knowing and practicing your areas of strength. So if I come across as not struggling right now, it's because intrinsically I enjoy being around people and I love talking to them. But if you ask me to do something which is in a non-strength area, I'll not come across as flowing. I'll come across as struggling. So the answer to peak performance, the answer to fulfilling human potential, the answer to improve productivity, higher engagement, greater well-being, happiness, a lot of these answers can be found in positive psychology. And if any of you are interested, I'd be very happy to talk more to you, maybe do another session with you guys around it. Because like Cecilia was saying, part of my work is helping people understand what their strengths are. And then once I've helped them understand using VIA, using Strength Scope, these are different tools, of course. Once they understand what their strengths are, then of course I coach them on how can they use these strengths in their work? How can they choose the right career for themselves using these strengths? How can they shift careers if they need to, in line with these strengths? So these are various applications of strength psychology, And if any of you are, if any of you have questions around your future, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be very happy to help.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Cecilia?
Yes, yes. Thank you. I just
Okay.
wanted to bring it out.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, it's something that I, you know, as you can see, I love talking about.
Yes. So there
Okay.
are few more
Yeah,
questions.
yeah, a few more questions, right? I'm going to just give me a second. I'm going to the folder where we had written all those inputs, right?
And I'd just like to welcome Principal Ma'am. She's just joined the chat. Ma'am, we're still going through the last few questions.
Yeah, please continue. Don't stop.
All right, all right. Thank you.
Please continue.
Yes.
Dr. Rajshri, welcome. And I'm just going to look for that screen again, okay? Where's the whiteboard? Okay, so, okay, Jay, I'm going to try and answer your question if you're still there. The state of lockdown we are in right now, you're locked into sessions from 8 to 8. And you're trying to balance studies, online lectures, submission assignments. So here the question, just a clarification question, Jay, if you can unmute yourself and tell me if you're there. What is it that you're doing between 8 to 8? Are you doing studies, online lectures, submissions, assignments between 8 to 8, or what are you doing between 8 to 8?
I basically attend online lectures, seminars, webinars, which are arranged by different organizations, and that's it. After it, I try completing my assignments, which have been given out.
So there's a lot of lectures happening between 8 to 8, you're saying, basically.
Yes.
And are all of these are mandatory ones, or are you just attending them because you like to attend them?
Maybe few of them are mandatory, and others are volunteered.
Okay. So, you know, one of the things that I want to tell you is that prioritizing is extremely important. I struggle with it too. But if you can learn to prioritize now, the rest of your life might be a little easier. Sometimes we have to take hard calls between, you know, we've got lots of things to do, right? I mean, you got exercise to do every day. You got morning ablutions to do every day. You got bathing to do every day. You got brushing your teeth to do every day. You got studies, this, that. At some point, what you'll have to do is you'll have to make up a list and say, which of these are essential, which of these are optional, which of these so, you know, if you can do that, and there are some people who do, and what they do is, so for example, I know some people who will lockdown or no lockdown, busy or no busy, CEO or, you know, MD, doesn't matter. They will put in an hour of exercise every single day. They will put in half an hour Zoom call with their family every day, irrespective of where they are. And the only reason they can do that is because they have learned what to say no to. And this is a very, very important skill. You know, it's like going to a buffet. I don't know, Jay, if you struggle at a buffet. Probably you do. But I know I struggle at a buffet. You know, a buffet's got so many options out there. If you want not to be starring in the remake of the Tummy Returns, then you need to tell yourself when you're standing at the buffet, no, I won't eat this. I won't eat this moong dal ka halwa. I won't eat this ice cream. I will not eat this. I'm going to have 2 pieces of chicken, 1 tandoori roti, and I'm getting out of it. And that similar thing you need to do with your life as well. Okay, I've got 8 hours, you know, today. What am I going to put on my plate? I'm going to put in the 3 mandatory lectures. I'm going to put all the optional stuff on the side, or I'm going to put the mandatory on the side and the optional I'll do today. Whatever, you know, whatever you think is important. And then I'm going to do my submission. Then I'm going to do my assignments. And between each of these things, I will take a break, because, you know, other problem is we tend to believe that we have to accomplish everything today only, and all the work must be done in the space of 4 hours, and that's crazy because you're human. You're going to get tired at some point. It's asinine to try and accomplish everything together. So you got to look up this technique called the Pomodoro technique. The Pomodoro technique is basically a technique that allows you to work in short bursts of time and then take a little break, then work in a short burst of time, take another break. So what you want to do is you want to attend your lectures, take a break, do some yoga, wash some dishes, then go back, do a little more, then do stuff like that. And I've seen that those people who actually are guided by their own energy, they seem to get a lot of stuff done. When they have the energy, they work. When they're tired, then they lounge. Then once the energy has come back, they work. Once they're tired, then they lounge. So kind of spread it out like that. Yeah, that's my perspective on it. And of course, there's a lot of friends that you will have, and people in your college who are probably who have their own way of dealing with this challenge, and maybe they have some answers for you as well. So yeah, if you have any more comments on that, let me know. If it answers your question, let me know.
Yes, it does answers me out. Actually, I had one doubt as well. So out of these, few were the ones which I volunteered, and there was no schedule for the compulsory assignments or the lectures that were there to be scheduled later. But out of nowhere, they popped up. So there's a question for me, like, which one should I prioritize then?
Yeah, so priority doesn't really depend on schedule. So for example, it's like this: you're studying, you're in your study phase right now. You're attending a lecture. Suddenly, your washing machine, it starts overflowing, and you've got water in your drawing room flowing all over the place. What do?
I'd prefer fixing the water flowing off.
Absolutely. So schedule and priority are not necessarily related. You can prioritize by saying, okay, I know what is more important. All priority depends on importance, and all importance depends on impact. So essentially, when you're looking at all these things, you got to ask yourself one question: what is the impact of me not doing this? If the impact is zero, don't do it. आज मैंने चाय नहीं पी तो क्या होगा? कुछ नहीं होगा. चाय नहीं पीने का. आज मैंने लेक्चर नहीं अटेंड किया, क्या होएगा? मैम गुस्सा होंगी. अच्छा ठीक है, उससे कोई इम्पैक्ट होएगा मेरे पे? हाँ, हो सकता है. जो अच्छा ठीक है, फिर ये करने का. So just ask yourself, look at every task that you want to take up and ask yourself, is there an impact of me not doing this? If the answer is no impact of not doing this, ignore that task. It's not important. Making sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Not that you'll get better at it instantly, it will still take you a lifetime, but those are the tips. All right. I'm just going to run through some of the other questions that we had. We are loads of. Ria, interesting question. Dopamine detox linking to unlocking your ultimate potential. What are your views on that? It makes sense because dopamine is the addiction neurotransmitter, right? I mean, sugar causes it, cocaine causes it, and anything that you want to do repeatedly is essentially dopamine. If you can get yourself, if you can put yourself on a kind of a system where you're not constantly chasing your next dopamine hit, yes, you can probably get more done. I think there's logic in that, Ria. Good point. Interesting stuff. Send me some research if you have it, because I'd love to read it. Here is my email address, and there you go. And how did you know what you're doing is your passion? Misbah, again, good question. I think I started, Misbah, by asking myself what I didn't want to do. I started with a not to do list, just like I was telling, Jay just now, that you have to have a not to do list. So I looked at, I actually created a list of things that I hated to do. ये नहीं करूँगा, ये नहीं करूँगा, ये नहीं करूँगा, ये नहीं करूँगा, ये कभी नहीं करूँगा. इससे मुझे सख्त चिढ़ है. So I made a list like that. And then I had to ask myself, अच्छा, ये तो सब कुछ हो गया, करेगा क्या? ये सब नहीं करेगा तो. And then I had to come up with a list of, okay, what do I find tolerable? So I don't know if if passion is the right word, but I arrived at what I wanted to do or what was acceptable to me by following a process of elimination. That was my method. But of course, what happened after that is I got introduced to strength psychology, and then I put myself through a couple of strengths assessments. I put myself through a values assessment, and I began to understand what is it that I truly find energizing, what is it that truly gets me going, what makes me feel alive. So knowing what truly makes you come alive is one of the tools of getting there is working with a strengths coach. And yep, so that's the way to do it. Acceptance is the first step towards understanding psychology or positive psychology. Ritika, I'm not sure if that looks like a very deep philosophical question. I'm not sure if I understand it very well. Do you mind typing it in again in a slightly different way? I'll come back to it. Yeah, social life. Manali, you'd ask this question. Social life changes post-COVID. um, I don't know. I've got mixed views on this. I think, see, this is not the first pandemic or epidemic that the world is seeing. We've got, before COVID, we had swine flu. Before that, we had bird flu. Before that, we had SARS. 1918, we had the Spanish flu. We've had cholera. We've had AIDS. We've got lots of these things. And I don't believe that humanity is going to go indoors. While a lot of technology enthusiasts say that no, it will change and everybody will. I don't know how many of you like to do, learning online or online lectures. I hate it. I can't stand it. The reason why I'm struggling with my positive psychology course is because it's not an in-person course. It's a course over a computer, and it's just not as engaging. Imagine, today we are having this interaction. Imagine if all of you were in the same room and I was there. It would feel different, right? And when COVID dies down, hopefully soon, then I don't think we'll use Zoom anymore. I think we will go back looking for human companionship. I don't think people are going to stop holding hands or they're going to stop kissing because of COVID. I hope not. I'm 45, but you girls are in trouble if that happens. You'll have led a very pointless life in that case. So I'm hoping that social life will resume post COVID, Manali. There will be more precautions for sure, but I don't think we're going to stop mixing and moving. It's not. I don't believe it's going to happen. Sakhi, good question. How can I use positive psychology to overcome struggles and inhibitions? So understand that your strengths, if you can, if you've taken the VIA assessment or if you take strength scope, you're going to find that there are some things that come naturally to you. And those things are actually less of a struggle. You do those. See, one of the things you need to understand, and this is my personal theory, and this is what positive psychology will agree with. I know strength psychology does. That who has said that you need to be good at everything? Who's put this notion in your head that you need to be an all-rounder? That your English must be perfect और आपका हिंदी का उच्चारण भी एकदम शुद्ध होना चाहिए, आपकी मराठी भी आपको आनी चाहिए, साथ में आप जर्मन और फ्रेंच भी कर लीजिए, मैथ्स भी अच्छा आना चाहिए, साइकोलॉजी में टॉप मार्क्स भी चाहिए, सबमिशन भी अच्छा चाहिए, योगा भी करना चाहिए, घर पे खाना भी बनाओ, माँ के पैर भी छुओ. Who's told you all this nonsense? You know, you don't need to be good at everything. Get rid of that expectation. You can't be. There's nobody like that. Like Cecilia was sharing earlier, externally many people look like that, but Cecilia shared when she looked at me, you know, it seemed like Aman ko to life में problem ही नहीं है. You know, he deals with everything with such great confidence in life. हाँ, उस time पे नहीं था problem, मतलब कम थे problems, थे तब भी यार. um, you know, so on the surface you might see that somebody is like that, you know, they've got everything, but no, you scratch the surface, they have their own challenges and there are things that they cannot do. You know, even somebody like Einstein was a divorcee, his first marriage failed. Einstein could play music, he had a wonderful brain, he could talk, he was pleasant, he was funny, he had 5 or 6 different skills, he could speak multiple languages, but there were areas that he struggled in. So please don't expect that you will be a wizard in every area. Find the 5, 6 things that you're good at, do those. That will give you a sense of reward. Intrinsic reward will come from doing those things, even if it is talking to strangers, even if it is feeding glucose D or glucose biscuits to dogs, even if it is sitting with friends at a katta and drinking adrak ki chai. Do the things that you enjoy. It'll make your life better. Sorry, this is an area I'm very passionate about. Yeah, Ritika, self-acceptance. Accept who you are, warts and all, talents and all. I'm great at 5 things, I suck at 5 things, I like myself. That. Yeah. All right, we're at 1 o'clock. Questions have dried up, and they have because I know you're thinking. This has been a very philosophical note to end it on. So if you're thinking, please do absorb and grow.
Wow, Aman, I hope you're reading the last message. Saki says, thank you so much. Your answer has almost brought tears to my eyes.
Yes, thank you. I also feel very emotional when I say it.
Wow. Any more questions, people? Any more thumbs up, raising hands? Or Shrivali wants to know about your office routine.
Oh gosh, I'm actually related to Jai. I don't have a routine. I struggle with time quite a lot. That's one of my failings. I don't have a routine. I'll tell you what my routine these days is. I sleep at about 2 or 3. I wake up at 11. Sometimes, you know, sometimes at 10:30. And that is my preferred routine. I don't like waking up in the morning. These days, I'm trying to slip in a little bit of yoga or you know, some form of exercise in the evening. Yeah, routine is one of my weaknesses. So, and please, I want to say this. I'm not an ideal human being, so you shouldn't try to ape me. This is just me accepting myself as I am. I think there is benefit in routine. I want to adopt routine. It's just that I don't have a routine. So, though, you know, maybe this question you need to ask Shivali to those people who have a routine. Maybe Cecilia or Rajshri are good people to talk to about routine. दोनों ने PhD करा हुआ है, बिना रूटीन के तो नहीं हुआ होगा.
I think lots of prayers.
मेरी तरह बनना जरूरी नहीं है. You know, you can look at these two as idols. अगर PhD करनी है तो इनके पीछे जाओ, मेरे पीछे मत आओ. Yes, so you know, you're right, Shivali. I do want to do some research. I toyed with the whole idea of doing a PhD, पर मुझे लगता है अकेले नहीं होगी. Maybe I have to find a partner and maybe do a joint PhD with them.
All right.
Then I think we spoke about mental health and how do you spread it. I think we all should talk about it. The films that have been made on mental health, we should talk about those films. We should make more films. You should start a YouTube channel where you talk about it, where you interview people who've been through struggles, and just make sure that find more people like you who are passionate about it, and and have conversations about it online, offline, do events around it, host a webinar around it. Yeah, I mean, meet more people who are like you and be friends with them. And I think together all of us will be able to do more. Janvi, affirmations for emotional protection from overthinking. There's three things in there which are complex. Affirmations is one, emotional protection is two, and overthinking is third. I'm assuming that the challenge is overthinking. Yeah. So overthinking is something that you can get rid of. It's a risky thing, right? So I've got a couple of people in my family who overthink. I have struggled with overthinking in the past. My mother struggled with it too. We like to think. हम लोग को बचपने में ये बोला गया था कि दिमाग बड़ी अच्छी चीज है, उसको यूज करना चाहिए. So हम लोग बहुत think करते हैं. Sometimes we think too much about things that don't matter, or things that we don't have control over. And slowly I learned how to not do it. But I actually needed to work with a therapist to stop doing it. I've learned now. My suggestion is, if it's bothering you too much, find a good therapist. Find somebody who understands cognitive behavioral therapy. Get a good recommendation. Don't go to the wrong therapist. So that might be a good approach to learn how to overcome it, because cognitive therapy is essentially just a bunch of, you're basically teaching your mind new tricks, and so you can look at that. I would suggest, if it's challenging you. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Natasha
I have a
says.
request. I have a request.
Hmm.
I'm getting a lot of thank yous, so I'm going to offer you a lot of welcomes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Well, students, Sonali, Cecilia, Rajshri, thank you very much for having me. There is nothing, as I shared earlier, there is nothing that I like more than being around people and talking to them, and hopefully offering something useful to them. This is something that really, really energizes me. So rather than saying welcome, I'll just say thank you for giving me the opportunity to do what I love doing. And I have a request. If you are on LinkedIn, what I'd like you to do is, if you can find me on LinkedIn and add me. And if you can, if you found anything useful, maybe you can put up a post on LinkedIn saying, hey, I had an interaction with Aman and I found this useful. That'll be very nice.
Sounds good. I'm sure a lot of our students are on LinkedIn, and I'm sure they'll do that.
That'll be lovely.
And as we come to the close of this webinar, I would like to invite our dear Principal Rajshri ma'am to please share some of her thoughts with us. It's 3 days, 14 speakers across more than 12 hours. It's been a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cecilia. May I speak?
Yes,
am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
First of all, a very warm welcome to Aman for sharing his experiences and expertises both to our young minds. I'll tell you very honestly, Aman, one thing which I liked about the last part of your conversation, I didn't hear actually the whole thing. I hate online teaching. That sentence for last 2 months I've been craving to listen to, not because I'm a conventional teacher. I came from staff room to the principal's room, spent 26 long years teaching young minds, and still want to go back to the staff room rather than do governance and policy making and administration and blah, blah, blah. Because I belong to the field of literature, I can't resist remembering Tennyson's very well known lines. But oh, for the touch of a vanished hand and for the sound of a voice that is still. It's the human touch which enriches human minds. The Gurukul or the traditional Indian method of teaching, where knowledge is not only facts and figures and information, but it's beyond that. It takes you towards the last part of your life, which is the eternal bliss. These young minds are too young to understand all these things, but I have been really craving for last 2 months to hear this statement. Actually, this takes me to a comfortable zone that yes, as teachers, we can mold the minds of millions. Different strokes, yes. I'm very happy that Cecilia and Anuja together on the behalf of Department of Psychology took up this very challenging series of webinar. I could see there was Kanchan, there was Agastya, Chirantana, who is a great good friend of mine. People from all walks of life talking to young minds that psychology is not only about counseling. It can be teaching, it can be media, it can be journalism, it can be A, B, C, D to X, Y, Z. And I guess, and I uh, strongly believe Aman's last words, which I heard, the last part of the talk, you will surely start thinking in different direction and come to a conclusion that you should do what you enjoy and you should enjoy what you do. Maybe you will enter into a wrong job, into a wrong profession, but there will be a point of time if you feel that this is really getting bored, it is really getting me into an uncomfortable situation, you should start thinking of the next job. Times will come when the conventional jobs will have disappeared, but many new jobs are entering the job market. And I wish good luck to all of you, young minds and young beautiful girls. And my best wishes to the department. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for making time for us, and thanking all the resource persons also. But I have to thank my four dear angels, Hinal, Sonali, Pearl, and Sanskriti, for joining me in all the panic when the network went down or